We bought this place about 7 years ago in a shambles. It was basically ready for the bulldozer. If we wouldn't have gotten it, I don't think it would have survived. So we were the foolhardy people who put all their everything they own into this place and brought it back to life. But really, and that's usually when they tell you that things happen, that ghosts show themselves when you're doing construction. So it was about August. Prior to this, I guess there were a few little incidents. My husband had heard a train whistle up in the attic, with no train around here, but in the olden days there was a train here. Another thing, a guy who was a ghost hunter ate dinner here and left one night and said, "Oh, by the way, there's a lady on your steps in a long white dress." It's like, oh, really? That's really nice, you know? And another one is Michelle Livingston. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of her. She's a pretty well-known psychic in the area. I met her about a year before all this, and she had said she's not a ghostbuster or anything, but there's an Elizabeth that lives here. So those were my only little tidbits of stories here and there that people shared with me, but nothing really big. So we'll fast forward to August of 2 years ago. I hired a server here, and her name was Christine, and she started the one weekend. The first week she was here, we sent her upstairs. This was a Friday night. No, it was a Saturday night. We sent her upstairs to check for the toilet paper, because that's where we keep it. And she came back down Saturday night. She didn't say anything. Next day we sent her up to count it, and she was like really hesitant. But she went up and she came back down. And she goes, "Okay," she goes, "I didn't say anything before, but there was a woman on the steps in a long dress." And now she had no knowledge of that guy saying the exact same thing to me. So I remembered it, and I knew we never shared it because it was so random. It's like you don't share those random things with everybody. So that she said that to me, it made me. So I shared that with her, and I encouraged her to tell me a story. Tell me what she saw, because she had previously had the ability to see a Civil War soldier someplace, and so she had an ability to do this. And so I guess it was the next day, and then the next day was a Wednesday. A woman comes, it's probably one of our most dead days here, and very slow, and I was actually cleaning rooms, and a woman sat over in the old dining room, and she said to the server, she said, "Oh, by the way, those glasses on your windowsill are Waterford crystal." She goes, "You shouldn't have those there, they're worth about $250. And I kind of blew it off. The server told me, I kind of said, it doesn't really matter, and my husband walked through there, and through a small series of exchanges, she said, "Do you know your place is haunted?" Stanley greeted me when I came in the door. And she was very matter of fact. And like I said, she was a businesswoman, very businesslike, not a very pretty, like normal, very normal woman, not, like I said, not a woo-woo girl. And everybody knows what I mean by a woo-woo girl. She was very matter of fact of it, and at that point, all these things that happened, and my husband came over to me and goes, "Okay, now I'm really creeped out," and he told me the story, and at that point, it really piqued my enthusiasm, and I came over and I'm like, I need to talk to her. So I went over and I started talking to her, and she was very matter of fact. I see them like you and me, they talk to me like you and me, I've been this way since I was 5 years old. It was pretty much a case of, if you believe me, fine. If you don't, I'll just go about my business. She was here working on the Bonton Waterford crystal display and set up at the Hampton. She's told me that there's a reason why she was here, that this happens for a reason. She told me there was a woman showing her a well. She told me there was a little boy buried on this property. She told me there's something buried in the basement. She told me a lot of things, and a lot of things about herself. She shared a lot of her experiences living on Indian burial grounds and things like that. She's been like this, and like I said, she was sharing it with me, but if I'd have gone, "Okay, crazy lady," she would have gone about her business and never said anything. And we exchanged phone numbers, emails, and I was like, "You were the icing on my cake." I thought this was really fantastic, because she shared it, was somebody who I knew when she said Stanley greeted her. There's only one place that Stanley's name is written, and Stanley was one of the owners in this place. And his name is written way back on the wall there, and you'd have to be up there with glasses, with a magnifying glass looking for his name on the wall, and that's the only place his name was. So I knew she was, because she said a name that I knew. Okay, and that was on actually a Wednesday, and Thursday she came back. She was a really neat lady, and we closed the place for 3 hours. She was very interesting to talk to. And then come Friday, the server who had the ability to see things, she comes into me that day, and she said,
She was at home, and she had a vision of a woman running through the old dining room with a man chasing her. And I was like, okay, we went about our business and did everything on Friday, and everything was fine. Saturday, it was Renaissance Fair time, and we have regular customers who are Renaissance Fair stand holders down there. One of them is her name is Shauna, and she came in the door, and my husband was at the door, and he said to her, previously with Shauna, she wouldn't sit in the old dining room because she said she saw faces there, so it was kind of our little joke. So Tim, when he saw her at the doorway, he shared with her, he goes, oh, Shauna, you got to talk to Terry. There was a woman here who saw Stanley and other spirits. Well, standing right behind her in the doorway is Jamie and her boyfriend, and she smacks her boyfriend and says, see, I told you his name was Stanley. She said, I see Stanley every time I'm here. And that was a crazy busy night. So I was like, okay, I realized at that point she was staying here, so I knew I had time to talk to her. And actually she ended up eating at that table. That's where I actually ended up talking to her first, at that table. It was about 10 o'clock till I actually got to talk to her, because it was crazy busy, as Renaissance Fair time always was. So I sat down and we started talking about everything, and by that time the old dining room had cleared out. So we go over and we walk into the old dining room over there, and she stands there, and the first thing that she says is, I see a woman running through the old dining room running through here with a man chasing her. Exactly the same thing as the server the night before said. They'd never met. She was serving out on the deck, and Jamie was in here eating. And so when I realized that, I said, oh, I got to get Christine and show her, because I believe also when people have those abilities, they need verification that they're not crazy. So I wanted to prove to Christine that she wasn't crazy, and she needed, somebody else said exactly the same thing as you. So I brought them, and this poor other server, her name was Courtney, she left shortly thereafter, because she came in with her actually to the old dining room, and Jamie and her boyfriend were there, and they were all standing each other, and Jamie and her were telling each other the story that they saw, and they were saying, and she was wearing a blue and white dress, and the light in the dining room went like super bright. And now I walked in right after that, but four of them were all like describing, he doesn't want it to be found out, but she does. They were both like describing a situation that had happened. And Jamie will probably go into a little further about what situation is. I don't know. I guess she'll tell the ghost story. You'll tell the ghost story, won't you, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay, she'll Tina and Carl, just to give you, these guys are ghost investigators, and that was the other thing. After this all happened, that was when I hate to say parade, but it really was kind of, there was a lot of ghost hunting groups came through here, and it wasn't a parade, because I'm careful about people respecting my ghosts. Somebody pointed that out to me, and it was very important to me to have my ghosts respected and not called names.
We said, let's stay at the Farmer's Hope Inn. So I signed in, and we had the room at the top of the steps. And as soon as I walked in, I was greeted by a spirit. And I said, oh, hi. Nonchalantly under my breath. We got up into my room, and he goes, okay, who'd you see? So I told him, I said, oh, there's a man by the door. He said his name was Stanley. He's a really nice guy, and he's a crossover spirit. He's like, oh, okay. So later on that night, I was trying to sleep, and I was woken up the entire night long by a maid coming in and out of the room and going into another room and back down the steps out to the well. She repeated this throughout the night, so I didn't sleep. So, oh, you have questions? Yes, thank you. It was a spirit of a maid coming in and out of the room and down the steps and out to the well. And I think she was taking care of a soldier who was wounded, and that's what she was doing all night. So we didn't come back for an entire year. I was a little scared, didn't want to sleep, so we didn't come back. I was like, no, I don't want to go back. Although it was beautiful, and I'm really drawn to the place. So a year goes by, and I said, let's try it one more time. It was a beautiful place, and people there were nice. Let's try it. So we were signing in again, about exactly a year later, and Tim, the owner, was signing people in, and there was a woman in front of me. And he said to her, we had a psychic come in, and she said that the man in the front door, his name was Stanley. So I smacked my boyfriend. I said, see, I told you his name was Stanley. And long story short, Terry overheard me. She asked me if she could pick my brain of what I seen, because she's had a lot of people come in, a lot of strange coincidences. Would it be okay to talk to her? And at the time, I wasn't sure I was even going to talk to her. I said no at first. I said, I don't know, maybe. No, I don't think so. And I went back up to our room, was over room 9. And I sat there for a good 2 hours, even contemplating if I was going to speak out loud about what I seen in her, because I seen a lot here, the little short time that I'd been here. But she was a nice person, and something convinced me to talk to her. So I spilled my guts. I told her everything that I seen here, the maid running through, and long story short, that's how I got to where I am today. If it wasn't for Terry, I wouldn't even be standing up here talking about it. But through a series of events over the past 2 years, I've had a lot happening, and I've really grown with my gift. I do parties, and I love helping people. That's why I'm here. I believe that's why God sent me here. I have other things in the works which really wouldn't have started if it wasn't for the Farmer's Hope Inn. So, and Michelle Livingston. Michelle told me from the first moment, she's like, you're a real genuine psychic. You can do this. This is what you're supposed to do. So the spirits that are here, I believe there's several different kinds. There's the crossover, what I call the crossover spirits. Then there's ghost, and there's residual hauntings. Is there a better name for residual? Or?
That's pretty much
That's it. Stanley that I said that stands at the front door, and I said he's crossed over. He's crossed over. We all have a chance to go to the light. We're supposed to go to the light. God wants us to. So Stanley's crossed over. He went to the light, but this was his inn, and he loves it, and he comes back to visit. We're allowed to come back and visit. He comes back and visits. When I say we all have the choice, God gives us free will to choose Him, to choose the light or the darkness. So of course He's going to give us free will to go to the light or not. A lot of people, when they become ghosts, because they feel they're going to be judged harshly, they feel God doesn't want them or they're going to hell, or they had a traumatic separation from their body and they're looking for somebody, looking for their mother. That's the reason they stay ghosts. There's angels, there's people to try to help them, say, come on, come back to the light, but for some reason they just don't. And you can't make them, if they can't be made to go to the light, just like we can't be made to believe in God. That's your choice. Does that make sense? That's how it's explained to me by my spirit guides, because I get very upset sometimes when I see ghosts. And homes I've noticed have residual hauntings, they're not intelligent. If you have the stair steps in your house, every night at 7 p.m. you hear something run down it. It's the same, but that's usually residual. It's the same pattern, the same thing, nothing changes. And for me, how I tell is there's no communication. The spirit can't say, I'm here, this is my name. It doesn't interact at all. It does the same thing it's been doing forever. I believe he was one of the original owners named John Koch. Is that how you say his name, Terry?
Yeah.
Koch?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's all kinds of different ways to say it, but he was an old German, Koch, which is pronounced so many different ways here, so yeah.
And which is really neat is he talked to me in German, and I didn't know the two. One was Guten Tag, and the other one was something else, which means hello, right? And the other, I forget the other word, and it was a curse. I forget exactly how he said it, but it was really like go away curse word. There was a German here he knew one last year, and he told me, oh, that means that. I'm like, oh, I won't say that again. That's why I don't remember it. But he was one of the original owners, and he is a ghost here. And I found out the second time I stayed here, when I was staying up in room 9, contemplating whether or not to talk to Terry, is when this woman, Sarah, came to me. She was about a 19-year-old, well, we would say girl, then she was a woman. 19-year-old girl came to me, and she wanted to tell me her story. I'm laying on my bed trying to get some rest, and in pops a ghost. And I really didn't want to be bothered, but I was, okay. So she showed me how this older gentleman named John would chase all the server girls around. He was widowed, he liked to drink, he was ornery, and he chased the women around. And the way I put it is he was chasing her through the dining room, and he caught up with her one night, and she became pregnant with Elizabeth, with her daughter Elizabeth. And the reason she's still here is she died either during childbirth or shortly after she gave birth to this baby. I'm not really sure because, like I said, I tell people a lot of times ghosts remind me of an insane person or a drunk person. They're not coherent with us. They don't know what year it is. They don't know what's going on. They're still stuck in their realm of what happened. So she communicates somewhat, but not a whole lot, if that makes sense. But that's her story, that she's still being chased. She was caught. She had this little baby. When she died, she didn't want to leave her baby, so she stayed a ghost. So fast forward a little bit, a few years there, is her daughter Elizabeth was a beautiful little girl. She had dark hair and big blue eyes, and she would run around, love to chase butterflies. She was one of those kids that were in their own little world, beautiful little world they had. And at night, she was always getting in trouble for, like, not on purpose. That type of kid, you know what I mean? Like, just in her own world. And, yeah, so he would get mad. He was a drinker, and he was in his 60s or 70s or older by then. I know he had to be at least 60. And he didn't want to take care of a child. The servants really took care of her. So at night, when she'd be found outside, he'd throw her down into the basement. And he would, just push her down. Like, she knew better. She was supposed to be in her bedroom, and to him, that was her punishment. They were strict back then. So one night he pushed her, and he pushed her too hard. And she broke her arm and had some internal bleeding, and that's how she died. And she's a spirit here, still here, and her mom was here. So, of course, when she's crossing over and sees her mommy in the corner, she's going to her mommy instead of the light. So she's still here. And then John is still here because he feels he's going to be harshly judged when he goes to heaven. That what he did to these two women, so he's not going to the light. And plus he thinks he still owns this bar. This is his bar, and how dare any of us even be standing here talking. Yeah. And Terry says she has evidence, like some of the things that she's read, that where he was mean, where he just disinherited his child. And
where he really made his daughter pay back a loan in his will. He had to, it was willed that she pay back a loan that she had. And apparently we found that his son wasn't very nice either, following in his footsteps and gave him all that stuff.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is she kept insisting that I tell Terry that it was John the father, not the son. Mm-hmm. I'm not even from around here, so I don't know any, I'm from Long Beach Island area, New Jersey, LBI, Atlantic City area. So I'm telling her all this stuff. I'm like, she's adamant to let you know that it was the father, not the son. And what's interesting to me to find out is John did have a son with the same name, John, Jr.
Yeah, he had a father,
There was a father and a
John
son.
and a Frederick.
And he didn't give that place to John Jr., he gave it to his son Frederick. So
Yeah.
that just shows you that he really wasn't the nicest person in the world.
No.
Which is good for me. I like to say is I like as much validation from other people as I can get, so I know I'm not crazy. Because as long as I do this, I sometimes think, do we all have good imaginations? Or but when I hear validation from people, that makes me happy. Because I know I was doing a read for a gentleman who was a mathematician, and he was very critical, and I was scared to death. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to mess up. And I told him about his grandfather, and he handed him a candy bar, and he put it over his right shoulder. I said, he's putting a Hershey bar, sliding it down your right shoulder, and then he's playing with change in his pocket. And I made this guy tear up.
Yeah.
And it made me feel good. He said that's exactly how he did it. That's exactly how his grandfather would come over every time, and that's what he would give him. So it was really neat to me to know that I can help people. So that's why those three are here. They're ghosts, John's a ghost. I believe there's Civil War soldiers here. We haven't been able to prove it yet, but they've been telling, I've gotten from the soldiers that there's something buried here. Some kind of Confederate money, some kind of papers, or something under the steps and in the basement where I believe that they got lost from Gettysburg or somewhere in a big battle and came upon here and were injured. And of course, being an inn, they were just trying to help them out. And then the Union soldiers came, because this was their territory, and so the inn was trying to hide them out, trying to keep them from everybody getting killed. Whether they wanted to help the Confederate or not, it didn't matter. They didn't want to get killed from either side, so they buried some stuff in the basement. On New Year's night, we were here, and I kept getting the soldier coming through, and he kept saying, the fifth step down, the fifth step down. Did she tell you about that?
And the trunk out in the back.
The trunk out in the back.
I still got people.
But what's neat is we dug. She must really trust me, let me dig up the steps.
Yeah, we were down there digging.
We went down there digging in the basement, and sure and behold, we found papers though. The fifth step
we did
down.
find it was all disintegrated. Some of it was disintegrated, but there was papers in it. It wasn't.
So if anybody knows any historians who could help us with, and even we found silver leaf. I guess they call it.
We think it is either that or I'm not sure. Like I said, I'd like to get that tested and see whether that's what it is, because it was silver pieces of silver colored, and I don't think they had tinfoil.
I don't know. Tinfoil,
the only other thing would be a mouse. That would be the only. But I don't know. Like I said, it's very thin. It doesn't look. It's too thin for foil. And what they said is we researched it. They used to wrap up the badges of the Civil War soldiers in silver.
Well, not the badges.
They're numbers.
What is that number that they get? Their serial number?
Okay, yeah, they're
wrap
serial
it in
numbers,
in a silver leaf, so I guess it wouldn't.
Yeah, so we did a little
whatever,
research
and
on the
it's an
internet
honorable
on
thing
that,
when they
so
couldn't
we're
bury
still
their bodies back home.
Yeah.
So they'll put that places, and actually they did do this, which is amazing to me. Is when the ground was that cold and that hard, they would bury them in the basements of inns. Did anybody know that? In pubs, because it was the public house. That's where you get the name pub. Public house is where they did courts. It's where they did everything. Was in the pub. Yeah, and then when the earth would break, when it was warm enough, they would dig up the bodies and go bury them where they needed to be. So I think what happened is they were Confederate soldiers and they just got left here.
Yeah,
That they never took them back
So
up.
there's yeah. And I always say that there's a dirt part of the basement down there, and I'm like, there's a reason why that was always left to be
Yeah.
a dirt part of the basement. It's the only part that's still left as dirt.
Oh,
down
and the
there.
thread and the fifth step down.
Yeah,
we
they
found.
found the
We
little-
don't know what this means, but it's hollow. I'll show
Yeah.
you. Behind the fifth step out here, it's all hollow back there, and we found this red thread. It's thicker
That we
than
can't
a thread,
get.
not as big as ribbon that we can't get, and it is real tight. Goes right
Yeah.
down.
Oh, we were crazy.
We don't know what that is, and we were crazy trying to figure out what it is. We don't want to damage anything. But it should be dirt back there. It should be solid rock, solid dirt, and it's all hollow. So we'll
Yeah.
figure out what that is.
Yeah. So
So that's somewhat of the story here. There's another inn that I do where I found that book running, that they were running books.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
20s.
Stockton Inn. If anybody
Yeah, you
knows
know
the
where New Hope
there's-
is? Yeah, the Stockton
Yeah,
Inn.
Stockton Inn. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to do stuff there, and we found out from that during the 20s, I told him that there was a seedier kind of girl from the 20s who was telling me about running numbers, and all I could hear was clicking in my head. I heard typewriters click, 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 click. I'm like, what the heck is that? And he said, in their basement, they have more phone wires than the telephone company. And I said, well, she's telling me to let you know they come in 2 bundles of 8. And he said, yeah, back then, that's how the phone wires would come in bundles of 8,
Yeah.
which is really neat. And he asked the grandson or somebody of the one who owned the inn at the time, why didn't you tell me they ran numbers? Because, well, we didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they really did
So
do
they
that,
did.
which is
So
really
that's
interesting. So that's a little bit of the story here and what I do and the different kind of spirits. When I give you a read, when I come around to do mini reads, I'm going to let you know that it's symbolism. I get a lot of symbols in my head. People always ask me why, and at first I had no idea why. I haven't had a psychic around to be able to train me. I don't know any psychics in real life to tell me, okay, this is what you do, that's what you do. I don't watch those kind of shows really, so I'm just going with what God gave me and trying to learn as I go. So I knew that they don't actually speak, it's a lot of symbols. Finally I watched, one time I did actually watch John Edwards and I got an answer. And the way he said it was, they don't have mouths anymore. We have phonics. We have a tongue to speak with. We speak with phonics. Over on the other side, everything's telepathy. They don't have a tongue anymore. They don't have a physical body. That's why I get symbols. That's why I don't get actual words. I get impressions. So it moves very fast. I use the ceiling fan analogy too, that we're on the 3rd Earth plane. The Earth is the 3rd level of everything existence. So we're going slow. Our energies and our bodies are at a slower rate. When you flip that switch up to higher and higher, it's going faster and faster. Just like when you watch a ceiling fan and you can only see like one blade going around, even though you know there's 3. Sometimes you can't see those blades at all, but they're still there. That's the higher levels of heaven. So I have to kind of speed my energies up, and they've got to kind of slow those down so we can communicate. I call myself the telephone. I'm just the telephone. I'm just hooking you up to the other side and telling you the information. I don't keep it. It's for you. It goes from me to you.
Yeah, and a lot of times it means nothing to her. She'll tell,
Yeah.
in fact, most of the time it means nothing to her. She'll tell you things, and she doesn't understand what it is, but you.
Yeah, just for instance,
yeah.
last time I was here, a gentleman I was giving a read for, he's one of the bartender or server, and I said, your grandmother keeps showing me scissors and talking on the phone with your mother. Did she talk to your mother a lot, and did she sew? She said, well, she did sew. So no, she's showing me talking on the phone with your mother, it's a yellow phone, and she's showing me scissors. He started cracking up. He said, oh my gosh, one time she was sewing and accidentally cut the phone cord when she was on the phone with my mom, and it was a yellow phone.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I
It
get.
means something.
So it'll
to
mean
you.
something to you.
And
I don't-
verify it to her,
Yeah,
like
just
she
verify
said. She wants you. If she's right, she doesn't pull information from
No.
you. But if she tells you something that is right, even if you don't remember it right away, a lot of people go home and go, oh yeah, that's what that is. Or check with a family member and find out
a
something.
lot of times
So
it don't make sense right away.
keep
She'll
the
bring it
information.
home, keep the information, bring it home, it'll mean something to somebody.
somebody.
And I don't
someday along
argue
the
with
line.
spirit. And when a spirit tells me something, that's what they tell me. I know a woman, I was with the 13 grandchildren. She kept saying adamant she had 11. I said, I'm sorry, but your husband's saying 13, I can't argue with him. He's passed on one. So he looked over at the daughter next to him. I said, he said to ask you about the twins who passed away. And she said,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's right. They died at 2 months old. That would have been 13.
Yeah.
So that's how it works with me. So it's a lot of, like I said, the mother's side usually comes through, always, not usually. Your mother's comes through on your left-hand side, and the father's usually on the right-hand side for me. So that's how it works.
The mother's
Usually it seems
family,
respectful, the mother's family usually comes through. I guess it's a respect issue. If they were in the military, they'll salute. If 3 children, they hold up 3 fingers. And a lot of people, I want to say too, is when you're home in your house and you smell like something, like a cigarette or cigar, like your grandfather used to smoke, he's usually around. He's letting you know he's around. I really believe that. Has anybody had that happen?
And it's a money thing when you
Yeah,
find money
money.
laying on the
When
ground.
you find change
they think
on the ground,
That's
you should pick it up and check on it. It might be the year you were born or the year that they passed away. A lot of times they send coins to you. And lights. They loved mass with lights. Turning them on, turning them off, short circuiting. These are some of the ways that they let you know that they're there. I had a woman who told me that her grandmother never comes through and bothers with her. And she doesn't have lights coming on and off. And I said, well, no, you don't, but she's showing me a computer. What's with a computer? Well, her grandmother couldn't work computers to save her life. And every time she turned on the computer, she'd crash it. So, and I said, what just happened to your computer yesterday? And her computer, long story short, she's had a lot of times with it crashing. But the scary part of this was, she swears to me it wasn't even plugged in. And it came in, flashed on, and then flashed back off again. So she said, your grandmother said she's messing with the computers. So that's kind of interesting. Does anybody have any questions for me so far? Questions?
Outside of the building, the main part of the tavern, the center part there, is the oldest part of the structure. It's really large stones from the outside. If you look from the outside, this part was built on a little later, this addition, and it was probably more like the owner's quarters, where they lived, and there's an abandoned back stairway. You know, if you lived in an old house, you can't see it, but out of the kitchen, it turns and goes up to the upstairs. This old wainscoting on the side is original. The flooring in here with the uneven pine plank floors is the original floor. And this is kind of what's neat about this place. It has the tavern feel. This is a little more formal, and then we have the deck in the summer. So you can get like 3 different feels in the same restaurant. And this was an old outside wall, as you can see right here going through this doorway, how thick everything is. And
And
yeah.
it's like the weirdest thing, and I am like shaking
And
right
then you
now.
took another picture and it
This
wasn't
is
very good.
this is
Yeah.
the room where
I
the
can show
scenario
you.
of the old owner is chasing the young
Oh
girl.
my god, I am
through
shaking.
here. All right, well let's go on up the stairs here, folks.
Exactly,
And
first.
the first room.
Okay.
But this is the one that everyone says that there's a Confederate soldier in Grays who's injured in here and is being tended to by the nurse or the gal that's going up and down the stairs. She has some bloody, bandages or rags or something that she's changing as dressings and going out to the well out front and coming back in.
Is this where the
It was the stagecoach driver's son who perished, apparently from consumption or something when he was here, maybe buried on the property. But nice quaint rooms. This one, I know one of our occupants who was kind of looking for activity said, we had a rocking chair in here. I don't know if it's still in the corner or not. Said they came in and saw the rocking chair moving. People like this one. This one is very attractive. It was, I think Sarah is this room named for Sarah? Is that the one that's right out here?
Sarah.
It says Sarah, and that's the mother of Elizabeth, who was the barkeep's
She's brave.
has some of our oldest furniture in it, 1870s set of furniture with the bed, and we actually had one of our fair friends who was did some bamboo work and things like that. Trevor from Florida, and he stayed in here for most of the summer with us during the weeks. He has a stand down here at the fair, and he was down in Florida as well. Nice, just comfortable rooms, real comfortable rooms. Private bath. We have wireless internet. We have, we do the whole thing. But and as I say, we're B&B style, bed and breakfast style, but we're a bed and bar. So we like to have we have late night activity during the summer and on Fridays and Saturdays with groups and bands and things like that. So you have to be into that. But my wife and I have both been. She put little angels up in those things, and kind of it's just a nice touch. I have never really felt a foreboding feeling or anything strange about this place. We figure we've done the right thing for it.
Yeah.
We brought it back from the edge and done the right thing, tried to bring it back to life, and made it an active place of commerce again. So we figure we've made the spirits happy, made us happy.